Hello and welcome to Chapter 23 in Healthcare Supervision. We're going to be talking about teams, team building, and teamwork. We're going to start in the text on page 388, and we're going to start under the section labeled Types of Teams. Now, this lecture may be just a little bit longer than typical for this course, but there's a lot of information here that I want to be sure to cover. All right, so under types of teams, it says, there are two general types of teams to be encountered in the workforce, and it's not always immediately clear what type is being referred to when one speaks of team building. Dropping down to that next paragraph. One type of team is characterized by the group assembled for a specific purpose, perhaps including some people from a number of different departments or disciplines. This type of team may be ad hoc, assembled for a specific one-time task, or it may be ongoing in that it consists of permanent or rotating membership and handles a certain kind of business or problem on a regular basis. These are the teams of team-oriented problem solving and total quality management. These are the teams that at one time may have been referred to as quality circles, and these are the teams of the form taken by your organization's safety committee or product evaluation committee and other such groups. This type of team, often referred to as a project team or an employee team, is the focus of the first major section of this chapter. The other type of team, the focus of later sections, is the departmental team. The departmental team is simply the group of employees and the single supervisor or manager to whom they report. We say simply because the team composition is indeed simple. Most people readily understand the relationship between the supervisor and the direct reporting group, and most understand that everyone in the group has a job to do, and together this accomplishes the work of the group. Such a group can, of course, continue to operate as a number of individuals doing their job for a common purpose, but when these individuals are united into a true team, the potential of the group is expanded dramatically. All right, so let's talk about in this first type of team, our first little project team, how sometimes we run into legal hazards. So let's talk about a quick overview of the project team. The organization of a project or employee team can be relatively simple. A decision is made to pull together a number of people with the appropriate knowledge, experience, perspective, and whatever to address a particular problem, provide input on particular issues, undertake productivity improvement projects, or address certain ongoing concerns such as safety, quality, education, and so forth. Most ad hoc or ongoing teams consist of both managers and rank-and-file employees, and because there are non-managerial employees on the team, often constituting the majority of the team membership, there are potential legal problems depending on the kinds of problems or issues addressed. Effective people management is of course important to the success of any form of team. However, fully as important for many of these kinds of teams is sensitivity to the potential legal pitfalls of team operation. Whether through total quality management or simply out of sincere desire to solicit employee participation, a number of organizations have discovered, much to their dismay, that a team can easily stray into questionable territory. All right, so let's move down to that next section. Getting maximum value from employees while keeping them legal, or employee teams while keeping them legal. In these days of increasing employee participation and involvement, department managers are increasingly likely to hear suggestions similar to the three that follow. So the first one, let's pull together an employee team and find out what workforce thinks about this issue. After all, there's nobody who knows the ins and outs of most of our jobs better than the people who do them every day. Number two, we have no real idea what the workforce thinks about our benefits package. If we pull together a group of representative employees, we might learn something that will help us do a better job of allocating our limited benefit resources. And number three, let's give this problem a hand-picked group of employees to see what they can come up with. There's no danger because all they can do is recommend, and as managers, we're free to accept or reject what they suggest. Each of the foregoing suggestions does contain some fairly conventional management wisdom fostered by experience and supported by common sense. It can be summarized as follows. In most instances, nobody knows a given job better than the person who does it every day. It only makes sense to try to account for employees' needs and desires in designing a benefit program. And management is indeed free to accept or reject employee suggestions, as long as they remain aware that the responsibility always resides with management. Participative management and employee involvement have been talked about for decades and have been practiced in an increasing number of work organizations since human relations approach to management began to take inroads in the authoritarian management of the past. The recent popularity of total quality management programs spurred even greater emphasis on participative management, and it is tending to bring more employees further into self-determination on the job. More and more is being done with the involvement of employees by way of employee teams. There are, however, areas of employee involvement in which teams are seen as intruding on the territory of labor unions. There is a constant risk that a given employee team could be adjudged an illegal labor organization under the National Labor Relations Act. The three suggestions advanced previously, all well-intended ideas for employee involvement, could all readily lead to groups that could be considered as infringing on the rights of collective bargaining organizations. So I'm not going to read this section, old problem, different emphasis, but you need to read that one for sure, because it's talking about the electromation, and that was a big issue, and they found out that they ended up actually disbanding. The DuPont company had to disband 7 labor committees because of some issues, legal issues of forming these teams. So be sure to read that section. And then read the section that says, what does NLRB look for? We're going to move over to not the last word on 391. So it seems to be a matter of individual opinion as to whether quality committees or committees established to serve as communications channels to improve quality are labor organizations under the law. The point at which a committee's work on quality, productivity, and efficiency crosses the line and concerns or impacts conditions of work is defined by the board, making this defense that these are quality committees risky. Probably the worst case consequences of sanctioning a committee that is actually an illegal labor organization occur when the committee itself votes to affiliate with an outside union. If by dealing with committee and expecting some of its ideas and recommendations, the employer has already recognized the committee as representing employees, that representation cannot be withdrawn just because the committee decided to affiliate with the union. The employer may be legally forced to recognize the union and deal with it without an election by employees. It is doubtful, however, that a non-union employer would likely be subject to NLRB charges concerning employer-dominated labor organizations unless active union organizing was occurring. So, in worst case scenario, sometimes your teams could vote for affiliation with the union, and then you're just stuck with it. And then the more effective an employee committee is, the more likely it will be seen as an illegal company-dominated labor union. So those are the keys to take from that. All right, so let's talk about drawbacks of teams or committees, and that's moving over to the section on 392 labeled Shortcomings of Teams or Committees. Dropping into that second paragraph under that section. Some team members, especially managers serving on teams with non-managers or other perceived lesser rank, are unwilling to set aside position and power for the sake of the team. Also, unequal levels of knowledge and ability among the team members can lead to some to dominate and others to become overwhelmed or lost in a crowd. So that's one drawback. Some members go on power trips while some get lost in the crowd. Second section. Some extremely important and potentially highly disruptive effects of on teams reside in the company reward and compensation systems that continue to focus on individual effort, not on team performance. This has been a frequently encountered barrier to successful total quality implementations, as organizations have tried to alter how they do business without first, or at least concurrently, changing the systems by which they do business. Current reward systems support individual performance to such an extent that they discourage teamwork. So that second one, most reward systems focus on individual performance and not team performance. Next section. Performance appraisals that do not account for team performance also present barriers. In fact, an organization's performance evaluation process is a major business support system that has to change dramatically for successful total quality implementation. It is not nearly enough to simply change the language of the appraisal. It is necessary to change employees' concept of evaluation from a focus on the individual to emphasis on the team. So your performance evaluation system, it remains mostly individual oriented, not team oriented. Next section, top management commitment. In addition to the foregoing, lack of top management commitment to the process is a sure means of destroying effectiveness. It should go on without saying that the top management that fails to walk the talk will be recognized as insincere. Members will quickly come to see their teams as do-nothing or rubber stamp bodies if the participative process has no visible effect on top management. So, lack of top management commitment destroys team effectiveness. Now the last one, misnomers. Some people with teams lie in the labels in use for these bodies, labels such as self-directed, autonomous, self-managed, and the like. These names are misleading in that they convey the belief that these groups are independent and free to act as they choose. No effective teams in business really provide all their own direction. Each team should be directed by its specific charge or mission and by the goals of the organization. As such, all teams are actually interdependent with other organizational elements. Effective teams require clear direction, comprehensive guidelines, and open, non-threatening leadership. Efforts to encourage employee participation with self-directed work groups will not succeed without serious attention given to the development of strong, appropriate leadership for participative management. So not everyone recognizes that teams require special leadership. So these are your drawbacks of teams or committees. Now, what to avoid when using employee teams? Considering the issues surfaced via electromation, which you should read about, plus common sense organizational concerns for participative activities, we can enumerate 5 potential obstacles to avoid when forming and working with employee teams. Number 1, never allow an employee team to deal with terms and conditions of employment, such as wages, hours, benefits, grievances, and such. Even consideration of working conditions in general should be avoided. Number 2, do not solicit complaints, grievances, or suggestions about terms and conditions of employment from team. If such issues arise on their own, refer them to the proper point in the organization. Number 3, do not let team meetings degenerate into gripe sessions in which members simply complain about aspects of their employment. Number 4, do not mandate employee participation. Ask employees to represent other employees or sanction employees' elections to choose representatives. And 5, do not allow an employee team or committee to exist and function without a clear, understandable mission or charge, and without fully and plainly delineating limits on the authority and responsibility. In other words, the group must know exactly what it can and cannot do. Now, for effective employee teams, we're going to move on to that section at the bottom of 393. Short of actually establishing teams or committees to wrestle with certain issues, there are a number of steps that can be taken to encourage employee participation. It is possible and frequently advisable to consider bringing together loosely defined groups of managers and employees to simply brainstorm ideas, gather information, and help define problems, as long as no proposals are often or recommendations made. It is also proper to assemble an employee group to share information and observations with management, again, as long as no proposals or recommendations are made. Beyond one-time or limited informal gatherings, and in the realm of actual teams or committees, it is important to keep the following 7 points in mind. Number 1, when establishing a team or committee, identify it up front as not intended as an employee channel to management. So identify up front. Number 2, keep the team focused on work improvement topics only. This requires clear guidelines and plenty of continuing vigilance. So keep focused on work improvement only. Number 3, staff teams with volunteers or use rotating membership selected by some means that is not management dominated. So staff with volunteers or rotate your membership. Number 4, if the team is empowered to make a final management decision, it can be seen as acting as management. This is acceptable. In fact, it has been suggested that the ultimate protection against being ruled in a legal labor organization exists when the team can make final decisions in its own right. So, vest them with decision-making authority if possible. Number 5, if an issue is sufficiently narrowly defined that all persons affected by it can be included in a single group, a committee of the whole, including everyone, is usually legally safe. In such an instance, nobody can be seen as representing anyone else. So include all affected as committee of the whole when possible. Number 6, for standing committees or long-lived teams, maintain a majority membership of the managers. A committee or team composed of a majority of managers stands less of a chance of being adjudged illegal. However, a significant drawback of such teams should be obvious. A team composed mostly of managers is far less likely to be seen as a legitimate vehicle for employee participation. So keep a majority of managers on your ongoing teams. And lastly, rather than always creating teams or committees that tend to develop a continuing existence, consider establishing specific problem-solving or work improvement ad hoc groups, each with a specific, well-defined charge and a specific problem to solve. Disband each group after its goal has been attained. Such ad hoc groups can much more safely consist of a majority of non-managers than the permanent teams of committees. However, for teams composed largely of rank-and-file employees, it is legally safest to have management representatives serve as observers or facilitators, without the power to vote on proposals or dominate or control the group. So whenever possible, use ad hoc teams and disband them when their purposes have been served. All right, so we're going to move over to 395, and we're going to talk about the departmental team. As far as the healthcare department manager is concerned, ongoing project teams experience their periods of inactivity and ad hoc teams come and go. However, the departmental team is or should be a constant presence. As is often the case, a department may be treated as a collection of individual performers whom the manager must organize and guide in a common direction for a common purpose. If the individuals and the manager are conscientious, well-motivated, and honestly share a common purpose, this collection of individuals can be reasonably effective. However, a collection of individuals working as individuals cannot achieve the level of performance possible from a well-functioning departmental team, even if they each are doing their jobs well. Unless they are able to tap the potential of true teamwork, their output will rarely amount to more than the sum of their individual efforts. When we speak of team building, we are speaking primarily about building and maintaining an effective, productive departmental team, a working group dedicated as a body to continue superior performance through teamwork. Dropping down to that last paragraph on that page. We can describe team building as an organized, systematic process of unifying a group of employees with common objectives into an effective and efficiently functioning work unit. The ongoing challenge of team building is to encourage a diverse collection of people to think and behave as a single entity rather than a collection of individuals. What is sought in a properly functioning team is a synergistic effect, a total effect, and a resulting output that is greater than the sum of the individual contributions. The synergistic effect is literally the team effect in which the whole team is decidedly greater than the sum of the individual parts. Like it or not, the trend of today, indeed the wave of the future, in healthcare is the necessity to accomplish more with less. Therefore, it is not surprising to find that much of today's effort toward improving productivity is directed at improving the performance of work groups. True team building can foster increased productivity while maintaining or improving quality, and it can also improve work climate, enhance work relationships, and increase employee satisfaction. Team building, by its very nature, is a continuing process. All right, so recognizing employee potential, the bottom of 396. The supervisor who would endeavor to build and maintain an effective team must first and foremost hold an optimistic view of employees overall. This has to be a genuine belief in people and their capabilities, a Theory Y approach to the management of people as opposed to a Theory X philosophy. Theory X manager will ordinarily not trust employees to do a proper job unless they're watched, pushed, and regulated. The Theory X manager is a boss. People are viewed primarily as producers of output. Accompanying lack of trust, we will ordinarily find lack of respect as well, and the manager who neither trusts nor respects the employees will in turn be neither trusted nor respected by the members of the work group. Yet mutual trust and respect are fundamental to the creation of a fully effective team. The manager who would build and maintain an effectively functioning team must harbor the belief that the majority of employees want to apply more of their abilities to their work, and when they're not allowed to do so, their work is less satisfying than it could be. So thus, team building requires the following: shared power and authority, and increased employee participation. These requirements lead back to what has been said about effective people-centered management. It is fundamental to successful team building that the leader holds a generally positive view of employees and their potential. Now, let's move to strengthen motivation. The majority of workers will put forth a sustained effort to do a good job when and only when they want to do a good job. Some workers will do a good job in the short term out of fear or apprehension, but quality that is forced or coerced is not sustainable and is usually delivered with resentment. How then does the manager inspire a group of employees to the extent that they are willing to do their best consistently? Recall from the material concerning motivation that it is not possible for the manager to motivate employees directly. All true motivation is self-motivation, so the best the manager can do is foster conditions under which the employee will become self-motivated. Among the actions the manager can take to improve the motivational climate in the department are as following: get serious about proper delegation, using the process not to shift work around or shed unpleasant tasks, but rather to provide some opportunity for employee learning and growth. So don't just give them the stuff you don't want to do because you don't want to do it. Actually delegate and empower them so that they have an opportunity to learn and grow. Second, consider decentralization of certain tasks when appropriate, giving people at what might be scattered workstations complete control over the work that might otherwise flow through 2 or more employees. Third, look into the possibility of job enhancement, appreciating that a mix of more tasks and more varied responsibility can provide greater interest and thus improve job satisfaction. Number 4, try cross-training when possible with the goal of eventually having all employees of a given job grade able to do all of the jobs pertinent to that grade. This can greatly increase flexibility of the work group while increasing interest and challenge for individuals. Number 5, remain conscious of every opportunity for increased participation by employees and take their contributions seriously. This will strengthen mutual trust and respect in addition to opening up some productive avenues the manager might never think of alone. Number 6, allow employees who have proven themselves responsible to take on special assignments, especially those over which they can exercise complete or nearly complete control. Number 7, Constantly utilized enhanced feedback on performance. Recall that one of the job-related factors that means the most to employees is the full appreciation of work done. When praise is deserved, it should be immediate, sincere, and specific. When criticism is unavoidable, it should be immediate, diplomatic, and constructive. All right, so let's move over to the stages of team building. Although a continuous process, team building occurs over the following separately identifiable stages: formation, disequilibrium, role definition, maturity, and maintenance. So let's talk about each one of these individually. It is not often that a departmental team has to be formed from the ground up with all new participants. However, there are significant events occurring that disrupt the balance and composition of a team to an extent that the resulting configuration is essentially a new team. One such event is turnover in team leadership, especially when the new supervisor or manager is a complete unknown. Another is a new departmental configuration such that resulting from example for an inter-organizational merger that throws two or more groups together under common leadership new to many of them. These and similar changes in composition throw the team into a formation stage as the participants work to reestablish common ground and build what amounts to a new team. In the formation stage, individual commitment is tentative. A number of people are likely to adopt a wait-and-see attitude, especially where new leadership might be involved. A new leader, even one who is philosophically similar to previous leader, will likely have a personal, individualized approach to different facets of the job. New relationships must be established, and until this has been accomplished, much team communication will be cautious and guarded. Trust and confidence will not be extended in full until the new leader, or, in the instance of a merger, the new group has acquired a level of comfort with this new combination of personalities. Next step is disequilibrium. In this second stage of team building, most of the people in the group are having their effects of individuals according to their own needs, desires, and capabilities. They may be doing their jobs well, but they are doing them as individuals. Many do not yet see themselves as part of a team. With each other, they tend to be competitive more than cooperative. Some members fear loss of credit to others, and some may strive to be the ones who are on the good side of the manager. Some will view the portion of the workday they do as their exclusive territory, and they will become protective of that domain. Some groups never go appreciably beyond this stage, forever remaining in the state of disequilibrium. The work can and does get done in this stage, at least at a minimally acceptable level, but it is the aggregated work of the individuals, not the output of a functioning team. When a group is in a state of disequilibrium, there is little to no synergistic effect. In this state, at best, the whole is no more than a sum of the parts. Whether a group is to move beyond disequilibrium is dependent on the skill, determination, and desire of its leadership. The purely production-centered manager may have difficulty moving a group beyond this stage. Complete and successful team building requires a people-centered focus. Next step, or stage, is role definition. As mutual trust and respect build among members of the group, and as individual roles are clarified and the interrelationships of these roles are established, cooperation begins to build and a team identity begins to emerge. Distrust is rare and mutual respect is high. Communication becomes more open as participants begin to behave less like competitors and more like collaborators, and find a level of comfort in relationships with other members of the group. Individuals understand their place in the larger picture, and they have especially taken on the objectives of the group as their own. Relatively stable departmental groups, especially those consisting of people who have worked in harmony for a considerable time, will exist and function at this stage as far as the majority of members are concerned. What is needed most for the group to move beyond this stage is the appropriate leadership of a manager who sees himself or herself as part of the team, as well as the catalyst that moves the team, and who can honestly equate personal success with team success. Next stage, maturity. Maturity, of course, describes the mature, functioning team. The mature team will exhibit high levels of cooperation, mutual trust, and support and productivity. The mature team will experience normal or below normal turnover, and most of the turnover that does occur will be driven not by dissatisfaction, but by other more positive forces such as a career advancement or forces beyond departmental control such as disability or death. For the most part, the members of the mature team will experience pride in team accomplishments and exhibit high levels of job satisfaction. And then our last stage of team building is maintenance. In team building, maturity is not a fixed destination. Rather, it is a state of existence that must be maintained or it will deteriorate. Nothing remains stable. System inputs change in character, the environment changes, subtle and not so subtle changes in organizational mission and direction occur, and the team that does not continuously adapt will fall behind. Because nothing remains stable, team maintenance requires a regular infusion of new ideas, novel approaches, and challenges to maintain team effectiveness. The mature team, if it is to remain fully effective, must change as the circumstances that surround it and the demands made on it change. Another important dimension in which a team must be conscientiously maintained is the manner in which the new team members are assimilated. All too often, new employees are thrown into a job with inadequate orientation and incomplete preparation. When this occurs, one of two results are likely to follow. One, the new employee feels adrift and uncomfortable to the extent of resigning shortly after placement. Or two, the new employee catches on in bits and pieces, fits and starts, by guesswork, by asking coworkers and so on, and develops as an individual performer, not as a team player. Team maintenance places a high priority on bringing in new members appropriately. Education in the organization's mission and objectives, and the departmental's team role in pursuing them. Thorough orientation to the functioning of the department team. Direct mentoring, perhaps teaming a new employee with an experienced person for as long as it takes to achieve comfortable assimilation. Regular coaching and encouragement are what it takes to bring a new person completely up to the status of a fully functioning team member. All right, so let's talk about the power of the team, the individual. A great deal has been said up to this point about the departmental team as a functioning unit. This should not be allowed to convey an incorrect impression of the individual's place as part of the team. People are not absorbed into some form of group mind and robbed of their individuality. Quite the contrary, individual identity and individual motivation must be perpetuated as the heart of the effective work team. Motivation always remains individual. Recall that all motivation is self-motivation. Also, we can go so far as to claim that individual motivation is the point at which all human productivity begins. Skipping the next paragraph, dropping down. What teamwork actually accomplishes is focusing the efforts of individuals on common goals and objectives and the process of reaching them. Teamwork itself is not a goal. Rather, teamwork is simply a means of harnessing the individual efforts and contributions of the people who make up the team. All right, so let's move over to team building and leadership style. So we're going to talk about the differences between a boss and a leader. The department manager's leadership style is the greatest single determinant of successful team building. The development and maintenance of a mature, functioning team requires an open, participative, people-centered approach to management. The difference between success and failure at team building is as fundamental as the difference between participative management, which is genuine leading, and the authoritarian management of bossing. The manager who would build an effective team cannot set self above the group, but must rather be an integral part of the group. Consider the following differences between the old-fashioned authoritarian, called boss in this comparison, and the modern participative manager, which is the leader. The boss wields authority, whereas the leader cultivates goodwill. The leader possesses authority, but does not openly flaunt it. The boss tells people how things should be done, whereas the leader, when possible, shows how things are done. The boss pushes people, whereas the leader coaches, counsels, and encourages. The boss has an I orientation: my department, my staff, my accomplishments. But the leader has a we orientation: our department, our group. The appropriate focus for a team's leader is always we, us, or ours, and never I, me, or mine. The boss, in effect, simply says go and watches as the group moves toward a goal. The leader, in effect, says let's go and moves toward the goal as part of the group. All right, so let's talk about guidance for the team builder. Under the heading, we could perhaps insert an entire educational program in supervisory practice or people-centered management. The paragraphs that follow are meant to provide a picture of the approach to be taken by the department manager who truly wishes to develop one of these exceptionally effective teams, as which we see far too few. So we're going to move over to 401 and look at what it actually, what it takes really to build this team. Be continually aware of what employees want from their employment and take these expressions of need seriously. Second, be seen as identifying more readily with the department than with a higher level collective known as management. The manager whose focus is clearly upward is likely to be viewed by the staff as an outsider, one of them, talking about management, while the manager viewed by the staff as an insider, a member of their group, is far more likely to inspire the cooperation needed to build an effective team. 3. Be readily visible and available to the department's employees. Visibility and availability reinforce the manager's commitment to the group and provide assurance that support and assistance are always close at hand. 4. Be serious about practicing proper delegation and give all capable individuals the opportunity to gain experience that might open new opportunities to them. 5. Offer to all staff the opportunity to learn and grow, and work to develop these employees who seriously take advantage of this opportunity. 6. Consistently practice the use of deadlines and follow up in assigning work. Any task worth doing at all deserves a specific deadline, not ever when you get a chance. Never let a deadline pass unanswered without following up. 7. Practice true participative management. Be ever aware that the department's employees can be a nearly bottomless well of improvement opportunity. And 8. Encourage team participation and decision making. The successful team building manager will recognize that giving employees a voice in decision making does not indicate weakness or abrogation of responsibility. Rather, doing so indicates just the opposite: strength and sufficient confidence in the employees to bear the ultimate responsibility for the decisions made jointly. All right, this last section, it's going to wrap it up for us. All that has been said about the behavior of the serious team-building manager is directed towards securing employee commitment to the process of creating and maintaining a fully functioning departmental team. There is a direct and undeniable relationship between employee commitment and an employee's sense of being part of the team. Employee commitment cannot be mandated or manipulated into existence. It must be inspired by the manager's own commitment and continually reinforced by the manager's attitude and behavior. Attitude, especially the manager's attitude, can be an extremely powerful force. Attitude, whether positive or negative, is invariably contagious, and the leader's attitude can affect the entire group for good or for ill. It can sometimes be the most difficult task a manager can undertake to convey a positive attitude in the face of difficulty and often downright hardship. But without a positive attitude concerning what can be accomplished, there will be little chance of building and maintaining a fully functioning, productive team. In the foreseeable future, healthcare management will likely continue to experience constant pressure to accomplish more with less. One of the few ways of doing so through the improved productivity possible is through the improved productivity possible from an efficient and effective departmental team. So happy studying, happy reading. Again, go through your PowerPoint, listen to the lecture, read your chapter, really dig into your discussion questions, and you will do well on these tests, I promise.